You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome out there in podcast land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, a podcast and now YouTube channel that tells you all about movies, television, horror, science fiction ones in particular, in those two genres that have changed our lives, that are elevated above the rest. Johnny Has the Keys. My name is David. I'm here with my great friend Tim. Hey, Tim.
Hey, David. What's going on out there?
Just hanging out in the graveyard, you know, in the cyber graveyard sort of thing.
Yeah, we've kind of been cloned because we're not only in the audio world, we're in the video world.
Yes,
simultaneously.
Genes have been split, and we have been cloned. That's pretty good.
Ooh, wow! That might tie into our subject today, but we'll talk about that in just a minute.
Yes. What have you been up to? What have you been doing? Genre related.
Well, I was going to talk about. I normally talk about a genre related topic. In this space, but today I want to talk about something that just kind of knocked my socks off. That is a different genre altogether. Okay. What I would call the teen comedy type genre, which was really kind of fun in the 80s, especially with movies directed by John Hughes. I have started watching a British show on Netflix called Sex Education. And it
Gillian Anderson.
It is Gillian Anderson. So there's your genre tie right there. Gillian Anderson of the X-Files plays the mother of the lead character in this series, and she is a sex therapist, and she is hilarious and has already been nominated for awards for it. But the show creator, I cannot remember her name at the moment, specifically stated that she made this series as an homage to the John Hughes movies of the 80s. And you will see lots of things in these movies that remind you of John Hughes movies. Breakfast Club and 16 Candles in particular. So I think highly recommend it.
Yeah, I think I've seen the trailers for those, but I haven't seen any of the episodes.
Yeah. Really, really good stuff. I do advise some of you folks out there like me to use subtitles because the British accents are so thick sometimes you'll miss the jokes. Okay. But it's a very diverse cast, a very good cast, even though I don't know most of them. Some look familiar and some you'll go, oh, wait, I've seen him. Oh, and James Purefoy's in it too. He plays her ex-husband. He popped up in the third episode. So you know him as well from Altered Carbon, as well as Hap and Leonard, the Joe Lansdale show. So
yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So if you get a chance, I do recommend it. It will make you feel nostalgic for those movies in particular. So
I will definitely check it out and watch through. I've been mine have to do with a similar kind of side genre as well, and however. All three have been, I'll preface by saying all three have been extraordinarily disappointing. So hopefully this one will be good. So I don't know. Some of you may like this because I did find out that all three of these have been renewed, but there were, I've caught up on some unique Netflix series. One was called Cursed, and Cursed was, I thought, going to be one way and ended up being a totally different way. And basically it's a retelling of the Arthurian legend from the point of view of Nimue, who was, Merlin's lover who imprisoned him and yada, yada, according to Le Morte d'Arthur, the classic Arthurian legend. Of course,
I barely recognize that name. I was thinking he was more like a Renfield character. Okay.
No, Nimue is a girl who ends up putting him in, she ends up essentially killing Merlin by putting him in an ice cave.
Right. I remember that.
Yeah. Well, in this one, much like another series that came out, I think, which was a CW series or one of those called Merlin years and years ago. And it was just, I couldn't watch it.
You lost me at CW.
Yeah, I watched it with my daughter a lot, but basically Merlin was a young teenager in it, and it was just, they just changed up the legend so much I couldn't handle it or deal with it. He had a talking dragon, and I mean, it was like really not good. Anyway, Cursed is along the same lines. It's a young teen, young adult girl who is finding her fey talents, and she ends up pulling a sword out of a rock and it becomes Excalibur, and it's just, it's not good. It's just, I don't recommend
It
it. But
kind of, I'm having flashbacks to that Dracula series, that BBC Dracula series.
yeah,
Yeah.
just let's reinvent everything,
Yeah.
you
Let's just
know.
change it up.
And so then I thought, okay, Retribution, here's another one that everybody's talking about that's good. I'll watch it. It's called Warrior Nun,
I've heard of it.
based on a graphic novel.
Hmm.
The lead in it is a Portuguese actress who you would never know. Her accent and acting are incredible.
Oh, okay.
Amazing. But she's probably the only good thing about that entire series.
Besides the title.
Yeah. Besides, you know, how could you go wrong with Warrior Nun?
Warrior
But you
Nun.
can, but if your show is so ploddingly slow and predictable that it doesn't really work. You know, basically a secret sect of nuns that happen to live in this incredibly gorgeous, huge castle in the middle of Spain, and it's on the hill and everybody can see it, but they're a secret order of nuns. And they can go about the entire town and go everywhere, but they're a secret order of nuns.
It's not very
Anyway,
secret.
and these are nuns wearing armor with, you know, blue hoodies and everything instead of the typical, you know, flying nun wings or whatever.
Sally Field.
Habit, you know, whatever. But it's just, and again, it goes back to just storytelling. And from what I understand, it was a really popular graphic novel, but I don't see how. And then
I
the
didn't
last
know
one
it was a graphic novel, but I just
Yeah.
thought somebody came up with a crazy title and
or
just ran with it.
comic book. It was a comic book, I guess,
Okay.
more than a graphic novel. And then the last one, which I've just started and I hope to have high hopes for, because I did like the pilot and we'll see, is a new one. And it's an Amazon Prime, I think. It's called Motherland Fort Salem. And it's basically, it might be something you might be interested in. It's post-apocalyptic, so to speak. It's future set. And there is a group of women that have developed witch-like abilities, and they essentially become the army of the new United States, which is now called Motherland, of course. And it's a pretty intriguing premise, but I don't know if they'll screw it up or not.
It sounds like, the title sounds like John le Carré meets Arthur Miller. It's kind of smashed in there.
Yeah, but yeah, Motherland Fort Salem. And
I
yeah,
did not
so
know
I've
it was
got
going to
my
be post-apocalyptic. That's kind of interesting.
So I've gotten my estrogen fix for a little while now.
Oh.
I'm pretty strong with the sisterhoods that are developing. So,
Oh,
yeah.
yes. And I guess that kind of is a nice segue into our topic today,
Yes.
which is that of motherhood.
Motherhood. Aw.
Oh, okay.
What are we doing, Tim? What's today all about?
Yes, this week we are in the world, or should I say my world of horror.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going back to some of the good years of horror. I consider the 70s and early 80s some of the best. And this one is no exception. It is The Brood from 1979, directed by David Cronenberg, which is a first for us. Cronenberg is a pretty well-established name in the world of horror, and we have yet to really cover anything that he has done.
Mm-hmm.
He is a Canadian director, kind of came onto the scene in the early 70s, and by the early 80s was pretty popular. I think his first real commercial film was probably The Dead Zone, the Stephen King movie.
I would think.
Yeah, which is another good movie.
Cronenberg in the 80s, Cronenberg was like synonymous with Carpenter and Hooper and the rest of them.
Right.
It's just that he had his own little body horror niche there that they didn't really do.
Very gory stuff usually.
Yeah, he
Mhm.
likes the gory.
Mhm.
Yeah. I always
But
liked Cronenberg, though. You know, you had mentioned in the prep right before we started recording today that you know you really didn't get into him later on, and I actually always kind of liked Cronenberg. I like Scanners, I liked The Fly, of course, Dead
mhm.
Ringers, Dead Zone. I like a lot of his. Even later on, I liked Videodrome. I think was probably weird. You know, kind of weird in there.
That's to say the least. But yeah.
Um, but
No. You're right, and I agree that I think Cronenberg has gotten better and better as he goes. History of Violence was a wonderful movie, and I was very
yes.
happy to see it was nominated for Oscars. With
Well, and Crash was you know such a weird topic to talk about, but ended up being told so well in
mhm.
the movie. So yeah, that was a good one. Yep.
Right. But I mean, if we want to go back, he's known for little Canadian indies
Mm-hmm.
like Shivers and Rabid and
Rabid.
Scanners.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, Rabid is the one that cast Marilyn Chambers, who was
Yes.
famous
Had the
for being an underage porno
She
girl.
had the
Yeah.
thing in her under her arm. It was like his vampire story, really, I guess. But in typical Cronenberg fashion, it's not a bite you, it's a I have a thing under my arm that I'm gonna stick in you.
Yeah.
Um, it was like he's always been like into this bodies are horrible. Bodies can
Hmm.
do weird, gross things, I guess.
Exactly. And a lot of his movies were also I don't know, the titles changed because I guess they came over from overseas or into other countries. Because if I'm not mistaken, when I saw Shivers, it was actually called They Came From Within.
I think
Um,
you're right. Or is that a different movie? Is that a
n-
different movie?
no,
Or it's
I
the same
think
movie?
it's the same.
Okay.
Dario Argento had a similar thing. He had a movie called Phenomena, and in America, it was called Creepers.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and I don't know why they do that. I guess they feel like, you know, if you're going to put it in our territory, we're going to give you a better title or something. I don't know. But
Well, but that seems fine for Argento. He's coming from Italian, but you know, Cronenberg is right up north there. You know, it seems.
yeah.
Hey, he speaks the same talk, eh?
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
not Shivers in French, it's Shiver.
right?
But anyway, that leads us to this little gem of a movie that came out in 1979. I chose this specifically when we were looking for movies because I knew we needed to do a Cronenberg movie. And I'm a huge Oliver Reed fan, but it's also got Samantha Eggar and some other folks with familiar faces in there that we'll talk about in a moment. It is
Well, what's this
basically
story about?
it is about a man and his kid. His name is Frank Carveth. His wife has been institutionalized, and her doctor, Dr. Hal Raglan, has a rather inventive method of psychology called, what is it, psycho something?
Psychoplasmics.
Psychoplasmics. And Frank has some issues with what's going on. Some murders happen, and then everything all of a sudden seems to be tied in to Dr. Raglan's treatment of Nola and this very questionable method of psychology. Anything you want to add to that before we dive in?
No, I think that's
Okay.
pretty. That's a pretty good teaser sort of thing. I
Hmm.
mean, um, it ends up being a very bleak sort of outlook on things in general, all the way through it. I think he does make his body horror statement. He does make some pretty good horror moment in it, and it ends with what could be a hook, but also could be just a real downer kind of thing.
Well, yeah. As far as Hereditary or what
Hmm.
have you. What were your thoughts? I mean, can you let's just go back a little bit because I've seen this movie a few times. Do you remember the first time you saw this movie?
I remember seeing it VHS, living room, either yours, mine,
Mine.
somebody's, whatever. Uh, and thinking it was intriguing. I liked some of the stuff in it, but wasn't really blown away. I mean, it wasn't in my, top 50 or whatever horror movies or anything. I do remember some of the graphic stuff near the end being the most impressionable on
Hmm.
me. Um, and watching it again, I mean, my big takeaways in seeing it again, because I haven't seen it in decades probably, is had forgotten how incredibly good Oliver Reed is.
Hmm.
I mean, he's really good in this part.
Hmm.
And just hooks you from that first scene.
Hmm.
It's just very, very good. But overall, not one of my favorite horror movies.
No.
I'm like, didn't really scare me ever. Kind of made me creepy in a couple of scenes, but overall, I'm like, and there's something missing in it for me, and I don't know
Okay.
what. That was my take.
If I had to go back and say, oh yeah, I like David Cronenberg 20 years ago, I would have immediately said The Dead Zone, The Fly, and Dead Ringers. And that would have probably been it.
Yeah.
Now that I go back and revisit these, I'm starting to have a little more respect for them. This one in particular, and we will get more into that as we get to Keys, because I didn't realize the influences in this film, or at least the ones I picked up on from other classic horror. It is,
and also developing his style.
he is. I mean, this was like his fourth or fifth movie, maybe. I can't remember the order as far as when they came out.
Yeah, I think it is like his fourth, really. I think Shivers was definitely before this.
Mm-hmm. It was.
So yeah, I mean, he was developing his thing. Well, like one of the ones, and I'll just throw it out now that I'll comment on is, the autopsy scene with the creature is the entire thing is saturated in like that fuchsia, pseudo purpley red color.
Mm-hmm.
The entire scene. I mean, it's like a filter on the camera kind of thing. And he does that in several movies later, where an entire scene will be one washed out color. Right. I remember he did that in Dead Ringers. All of the gyno scenes had red. Everything was red.
It's almost monochromatic.
Yeah, very monochromatic look.
Dead Ringers poster, I remember being red too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they wore red hospital gowns and red masks, kind of thing. But even in Crash, there's that one scene in Crash where everything is in the blue, neon-y kind of monochrome look to the scene. And he just does it in these important scenes and then doesn't do it in the whole movie. It's not like a production design element. It's just his style. Videodrome had the one that was all orange. Right before he goes into the big, I'm going to stick my hand in my tummy.
Yeah, I always associate that movie with blue. It's funny how we associate these movies with colors.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, because I think that's part of his design. I mean, I know the color of Videodrome was blue, and I know he did a lot of television screens, so you have that blue static kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't have
you've garnered new respect.
Yeah, I have. I've garnered new respect for this film, but a lot of it does have to do with Oliver Reed and the cast. I mean, the guy that plays Frank is Art Hindle. I don't know him, but I know him. You know what I'm saying? I've seen him in stuff.
Because he's done a gajillion things on television.
Right.
I mean, seriously, like hundreds and hundreds of television appearances. And he's good. I thought he was very adequate in this. I thought he did a good job. Because it's hard to hold your own even in one scene against Oliver Reed. And so he and Edgar both, I thought, did good jobs.
I don't have a lot of background on the film. I do know, though, that David Cronenberg was in the middle of a tumultuous divorce and child custody battle
Well,
during it. And he says that Nola's character possesses some of the characteristics of his ex-wife.
well, write what you know. I mean, you're
Yeah,
the writer, but
there you go.
that sort of thing. That's what they say.
So I have a feeling a lot of that influenced this film as well. I guess before we move on to cast, I was going to tell you my history of this film.
Yeah.
Do you remember a movie called Terror in the Isles?
Yeah, of course.
Well, I don't know if folks out there remember these types of movies. It will depend on your age, but a long time ago, they used to release movies with clips of movies to, I guess, generate movie interest in these particular films. And Terror in the Isles was one of the best horror movie clip type of those films that I've ever seen. And it made me want to see every film that had clips in that movie. And there were
Yes.
lots of clips from the Brood.
You ended up wanting to write down the title of whatever it was. I want to see that movie.
Exactly.
What's the one with Santa Claus is a killer, or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. And in this one, the scene in particular that I remember seeing in Terror in the Isles is Oliver Reed walking with the little girl between the bunk beds and those little creatures jumping off the beds around them.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to see this film.
I remember thinking, this is a Friday the 13th I haven't seen. Because, it was a wooden room with wooden bunk beds and all that.
Yeah, it looked like a cabin.
This must be from Friday the 13th, part 12. Yeah.
So that's my first, I think, glimpse of the film. And then, like you said, we probably watched it on videotape together for all I know.
Yeah.
And I don't remember being that impressed by it the first time.
I wasn't either. I do remember the whole bite the placenta thing. Like I said, I do remember it had incredibly good, to me at that time, realistic Cairo blood. I remember that. I was thinking the whole time, every time somebody's beaten or killed or whatever, the blood looks really good. It's not like Argento bright neon chrome red kind of thing. It
Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
Its production values are pretty good too, I think.
I think so. Although he seems to have audio trouble, not only in this, but also in Scanners and a couple of others, where it almost seems like everything is dubbed. The music has the dialogue has a real dull quality to it, almost like it's been re-looped over something.
Maybe.
And then his music is just, his music is like really bad late 70s.
It kind of reminded me a bit of Evil Dead, a little bit. A little sensational in places.
Yeah. A key for me for that one was it was like he was trying to go back to those, 40s and 50s horrors where the title music is just so in your face, kind of thing. But yeah, I think overall I liked his overall production. I like his location choices. I like his shot structure. So yeah, I think from a production angle, it was well done. Yeah.
I mean, you could tell he had learned or was learning his chops. This was, like I said, I looked and it looks like this was his fourth movie, if you include an independent. I mean, not an independent, but a short. That's what I meant to say. So he had been around the block.
Overall, his horror tropes in this are cool. The whole something's happening in the kitchen, but we don't know and we don't see it. The whole, now I'm going to beat you to death with a glass ball. The whole teacher scene in the classroom, even with the kids. And then, of course, the attack on Oliver Reed at the end. All of those are really good, scary scenes, but for some reason, and I don't know why, to me it wasn't scary. Maybe I was overthinking it, but like with grandma, first of all, I thought grandma's weird. Why are grandma's reactions the way they are? Is she just an alcoholic, or what? Is she hiding something? Is there something weird? And I don't really think he explored that story-wise enough. of mom was actually repressing the fact that she thought her daughter was crazy a long time ago, I think. But it takes grandma like, 30 freaking minutes to get to the kitchen, and there's things spilling and knocking and banging. And I'm like, what? Even when she gets to the door and she's like, before I open it, I'm going to open it so slow. And I'm like, what? Grandma.
David, he's trying to create suspense.
Yeah, it didn't work. Yeah, it didn't work for me. No.
It was a little drawn out.
However, I did, like I said, there were times that it creeped me out. Children creep me out in general, and possessed children of the corn, kind of children of the damned, crazy kids creep me out.
Yeah, we should do Children of the Damned.
Well, both of those were huge keys for me for this, was Children of the Corn and Children of the Damned, both because of, possessed mean kids sort of thing. But the whole intercut scene, I thought, which I think was the best in the movie, between the husband and wife, Nola and the husband talking, and then Oliver Reed trying to get Candy, the daughter.
Right.
And it's almost like that. I don't want to make any noise because the crocodiles will bite me. But he's already told him, if she gets mad, we're kind of screwed. So don't let that happen. And the way he intercut that was really good. That was the tension. Very good. A key for that was very Hitchcock to me. It was very the way we know stuff that the characters don't know in each scene.
There's more than there's more than that scene in regards to Hitchcock in this movie too. There's a lot of Hitchcock in this movie.
Yes, there's definitely a lot of his shot structure.
And I also love that scene in particular that you're talking about. If I had to pick any of the scenes, it's also the scene from Terror in the Isles, where you've got the notion of someone's, and I know there's other movies, I'm just not thinking of them right now, where the danger is the manifestation of someone's subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? And it drives me crazy because I know I've seen other movies that did this, but I can't think of any right now. Can you?
No, you're right.
I mean, they may have been all movies of that time. Did Dreamscape do that?
But Dreamscape was more like a negative. Dreamscape was, we couldn't manifest in real life. We could go into each other's dreams.
Okay. Then that's
now there was another one that was kind of, what was it? It was like Dreamscape. It was 80s, but it was dream warfare. It was, to me, it was very much the impetus for Inception.
I'm not thinking of Dreamscape. I'm thinking of Brainstorm. I'm thinking of the one that had
okay,
Natalie
so Dreamscape is the one where they go into battle in the dreams.
Okay.
Brainstorm is Natalie Wood's last movie where they have the device that can record dreams.
Okay.
And they realize that if you put that on somebody else, they feel physically the same thing you did in your dream. Okay,
that's not what I'm thinking of either then.
But
I know I had seen something else.
Scanners is very much a manifestation of sight, almost like telekinesis and everything else. You can manifest your thing on someone else.
Yeah.
Sort of deal.
Firestarter. Don't make her mad.
Yeah, don't make her mad. But I like the way he does it in this. I mean, it's just that, again, I think he was learning and he was developing as a filmmaker because the pace of this is just really slow.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is screenplay, that we know stuff before they know. And now we're going, well, get to it then. Yeah, there's something in the kitchen. Get there. Or, why would you go back upstairs? Why, what, old man? What are you thinking? Kind of thing.
He's drunk.
Well, that didn't work for me. But it took him forever to get up the stairs and in there and do it. I was going, okay, we know what's going to happen. Let's go. And maybe that, again, that's just modern movies tend to be a little bit faster paced. But, even some of the 70s and 80s classics are still The Thing, Jaws, all that are still paced really, really well.
Right.
Whereas this one seems to be drawn out.
I still love it though. And I think I texted you when I first started watching it about how much I love 70s horror because there's more exposition and it is slower and it's not all
Mhm.
in your face and there are no cell phones. And you know what I'm saying? There's a
Agreed.
lot of cool stuff about this movie.
But I think once we get to a point, I'm ready to go and get into that third act kind of climax. And
Hmm.
instead, we're talking to the crazy guy who wants his daddy for like way too long in that scene. And I'm like, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Right.
Um,
And it's not a long movie either. It's only about
no,
90 minutes.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so, um, any other scenes before we maybe jump into casting a little bit?
No, I just think overall his use of camera is already apparent
Hmm.
and showing. He keeps a moving camera and keeps stuff in the foreground and creates a lot of good suspense and feel in his scene structure.
Right. And
Um,
like those directors you mentioned that he was often mentioned with, John Carpenter and George Romero, he wrote his films, a lot of his
yes,
films. So he
yeah,
was
he wrote
also
this,
a
right? So
writer.
this was his. He
Mhm.
wrote and directed this one. Okay,
Right.
yeah.
Um, that leads us to our leading man, Dr. Hal Raglan, played by Oliver Reed. Oliver Reed has been one of my favorite actors for a very long time. He's not what I would call an A-list actor, although he has done a few A-list films. He's just one of those, well, you know, he's part of that group that you always liked with Peter O'Toole and Richard
Mm-hmm.
Burton,
Yep.
the drunk English actors that could kick ass and steal scenes,
Oh
basically.
yes, that were just so good at their craft.
Right.
You know, because they were fearless. And I think part of that was alcohol. Part of it was just their mentality. They were fearless in the way they would approach a scene and a line and a whatever. And it was kind of like that Robin Williams attitude of catch up. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going and I will
Yeah.
I will chew you up in this scene unless you catch up with me, you know.
Exactly. I
Even in
always,
Gladiator, he was still that way,
he sure
you know.
was. Hmm.
So I mean, always great
Yeah.
in
I always
everything he
thought
did.
of like, Robert De Niro being an American equivalent,
Yeah,
minus the
Robert De
alcohol.
Niro,
Yeah.
Gene Hackman.
Hmm.
I mean, there were several of those that were the same way in you know, on this side of the pond, but they were, you know, they're just fearless in their approach to scenes and characters, which is great.
I don't have a lot of, actually, I may not have any of alternate casting because basically Cronenberg movies were small and he kind of handpicked his cast, and got lucky in the case of Oliver Reed. But I will
Hmm.
say I've got a little bit of trivia on Mr. Reed.
Yes.
While they were filming this up in Canada, he was arrested by the Canadian police during the production after he made a bet with someone that he could walk from one bar to another without wearing clothes in the freezing cold.
There you go. That
Uh,
is nothing wrong with that at all
So
whatsoever.
at some point in Ottawa or wherever this was filmed, a drunk naked Englishman was walking down the road in the snow. Naked. Did I say
Right.
that? I think I said that.
Yes, you did.
So there you go. That's Oliver Reed. Um
Yes. In a
Nola
nutshell.
Nola was played by Samantha Eggar. The name I am familiar with, but I'm not as familiar with her work.
Hmm.
I remember her from the 70s more than anything. She's kind of an Angela, I mean, what's Jacqueline Bisset? That's who I'm thinking of. She kind of reminds me of Jacqueline Bisset.
I can see that. That's a very good comparison, I think.
And she filmed this role in 4 days.
That doesn't surprise me.
No.
Yeah. You know, basically it's one set. She's only in that one set. So, because I also saw that note and was going, 4 days? What the? Oh, yeah. She's only in the one set. That's the only time you ever see her. There's no
Basically.
flashbacks. There's no other shots. She's basically in that scene, and she has 3 of those scenes with Reed, and then the one big climax scene with Hindle. You know, and so I was going, okay, yeah, she could have done that. Yeah.
Mhm.
But she did a lot of, you know, I'm the pretty girl with a lot of power underneath you don't understand character. That was basically
Mhm.
her niche that I think she did. And she did a lot of TV movies, a lot of TV movies.
I thought she was strong, especially when she would go from sweet to psycho. I mean, I thought
Yes.
the transition was really well done, abrupt and startling. Um, so yes, she played Nola Carveth, the institutionalized wife. Frank, her husband, as we mentioned before, was played by
Hmm.
Art Hindle, who, according to David, has been in everything under the sun.
Oh my gosh. If you IMDb him, it just scrolls and scrolls and scrolls.
I
He's
did.
done
I wrote a
everything.
slew still working.
A slew, yes.
A slew still working. However, I did make note that he was in Porky's and Black Christmas.
Yes, he was in Porky's. That is correct. Well, and going back for a second to Samantha Eggar, I mean, she's the same way. A lot of television. Did a lot of television movies, a lot of television appearances. I remember she did a lot of VO stuff too, a lot of voiceover work. Like she was Hera in Hercules, the series Hercules that Sam Raimi did. She
Okay.
was the voice of Hera
She's
in
got a
that.
great British voice. I like her
Yes.
voice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really good narration voice. She's really good. But she almost always plays this I'm the patriot, I'm the matriarch that, has all this hidden power you don't know. I look real sexy and sweet on the outside, but don't make me mad.
Hmm.
So, and it
I found
worked.
it kind of interesting that the two leads are both English and it was filmed in Canada. I'm kind of curious how he got them over there to do an indie. I mean, most of the budget had to go to them, I would think.
Probably. I would
Yeah.
think so. Yeah. And even though Hindle is the one that is, the lead in this, he's really our protagonist. Well, Candy sort of is the protagonist, but back and forth. But he gets third billing, under the under the stars kind of thing.
Hmm.
What did you think about her, Candy? What did you think about the girl?
I think she's very good. She reminds me, and this is a key of Carol Ann in
Carol Ann.
Poltergeist.
Yep. One of my
She,
first notes was,
yeah,
oh, Carol Ann's clone is in
right,
this. Yeah.
right, because she just has that same blonde hair and haircut. I'm typing that right now as we speak, so I
But
don't
I
forget to
think
put it in the show
she
notes.
but I think she had to suffer a lot more than Carol Ann, in my opinion, in this movie. I mean, what she was exposed to and what she saw and what are
Talk
implied to
louder! I can't
see,
hear you.
sort of thing. That was she was pretty,
Uh,
yeah. She was,
sorry, I
I
went
would.
meta for a second with Poltergeist.
I have a question, in my notes of I wonder if she was scarred for life from this movie.
I do have a note that she didn't do much else.
Okay, so yeah, she's the Linda Blair of
Right.
of
Her name was Cindy Hines, and she has very few
okay.
credits. So she was just in this
Uh,
movie pretty much. We skipped over a couple of the larger characters. I mean, obviously Cindy is a big character in the movie, but the
mm-hmm.
ones with more lines were Barton Kelly, who is Henry Beckman. That is Nuala's, I mean, not Nuala, Nola's father.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah,
and
good character actor.
awesome. And I have some keys in just his past work. He was in Marnie, which is a great Alfred Hitchcock movie,
Mm-hmm.
as well as The X-Files. He played Detective Frank Briggs in Tombs and Squeeze. The
Two of the
only,
best.
yeah, two great Monster of the Week episodes that are connected.
Uh-huh.
They're not part of the overall arc of the series, but they're part of a little mini arc within the series.
Mm-hmm.
And Barton also did tons of TV as well.
Yes.
His ex-wife, Juliana, Juliana Kelly is the woman you mentioned that gets murdered in the kitchen.
Grandma.
Grandma.
Grandma in the kitchen. Yep.
Yeah. And her name is Nuala. I was confusing it with Nola earlier, Fitzgerald. That's an unusual name, Nuala.
I wonder if there's a tie between Noala and Nola. I wonder if there's something he was trying to say there that I don't know. Is that some kind of French reference? or something.
Well, it would have been maybe if her character's name was Nuala, but it's actually her name,
Right.
or the actress name. But
Right.
yeah, I see where you're
That's an
going there because they
odd
are very
name.
similar.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple of other things I just wanted to mention. Jan Hartog, the crazy man that kind of they bond with, that gives some more info on Dr. Howe.
Yes.
Is played by Robert Silverman. He is a lot of these people are what I call Cronenberg cronies. Ha ha ha. And he is a Cronenberg crony, but he also was in Jason X, which is Friday the 13th in outer space, and Waterworld, which might as well be Friday the 13th in outer space.
Might as well be underwater. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he is a Cronenberg regular, if you recognized him. And then more importantly, Chris, Hal's companion. I don't know if they were like a couple or he was his secretary or what, is played by Nicholas Campbell, who is a Cronenberg regular, a very, very popular Canadian actor who also played Frank Dodd in The Dead Zone.
Oh, you're talking about his Raglan's assistant, right?
Correct.
And or secretary and or whatever.
And or partner. I mean, I don't know what was going on. There was a weird relationship there.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, not necessarily weird, but if it was gay, it was underplayed to the point that it was ambiguous. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yep.
But he
and
is
what
also.
About the? Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say he's famous for taking his head and ramming it on the scissors.
On the scissors. Yeah. Yeah. Stephen King. Okay.
That wasn't King. That was Cronenberg. That wasn't in the book. That's
not in the book.
I don't think so.
I have to reread the book now because I think that seems so Stephen King to me.
I'm going to look it up. And if it's not, that's how embedded Cronenberg is into your head. You're now thinking it's in a Stephen King book.
Put the videotape in my belly. Yes, it could be. What about the teacher? Because I liked her. And I really wished she had a larger part in the film because I thought she was good.
You know what?
in just
I didn't
those,
write her down.
In just those few scenes, she shows such compassion for Candy, especially, but also, starting to fall in love with him, whatever. But then saying, "No, wait, you have way too much baggage." Dude.
Okay, yeah, her name, her character name was Ruth Mayer, and she was played by Susan Hogan. I forgot to write her down, but she
reminded me of like another Cronenberg-y sort of, wasn't she? Or maybe not.
She's done a shit ton of stuff, which is mostly TV and probably Canadian. She was in the Outer Limits reboot.
Well, I think she was in Galactica too. The new one. I think she was in Battlestar Galactica. That's where I kind of recognized her.
The only Cronenberg I see her in is The Brood. So no, she was not one of his cronies. But she is a good actress. I did like her in that part. I had completely forgotten about her. She's the one that goes and babysits Candy while Art Hindle goes to rescue his wife. Father. That's not right.
His father.
His father, yeah.
Or his father-in-law, because he's drunk and
and he's going to drive up to the doctor's
and getting beaten with a glass ball. So
by a weird mutant child.
So that's a great bridge. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the plot itself. So in what little dialogue we are led to believe, psychoplasmics allows people to physically manifest internal emotions, specifically rage, because there's rage posters all over the place. Raglan mentions anger all the time and go through it to the other side, feel it all the way, blah, blah, blah. The dude we see at the beginning who later on takes over way too much of a scene later on with daddy issues is obviously manifesting his rage in these boils or sores that he gets all over himself. So was that a Cronenberg thing? I'm assuming, just like Videodrome, he kind of said, yeah, I'm making this up. This is pseudoscience that I'm throwing in here to make you think about it.
I did read somewhere where the term psychoplasmus is derived from some other study that, I guess was real, but I don't think proven.
Right.
With Cronenberg, I mean, to me, there's two things going on in this story. My fascination is with the manifestation of her subconscious, but Cronenberg's fascinated with weird body things happening as a result of these as well. And he kind of intertwines them.
Right. I mean, basically, for those of you who haven't seen it, why are you listening to us right now? Go watch it. But
go watch it.
Her rage is her manifestation takes the form of she can give birth to children.
But there are these little tumor-like things that grow off of her.
Right.
Right.
And they develop into sentient children things, creatures, little creature children.
Yeah. And apparently she's been having them for a while because there's a bunch of them.
Yeah. There's an entire brood of them upstairs. And they respond to her emotional state. As Raglan says, when she got mad at Candy for doing something or for breaking a rule, the brood took it out on Candy. When she gets jealous of the teacher, Miss May or whatever,
Ruth,
they go and kill her.
Right.
When she's intimidated by her mother, they go and kill Mom.
They get in the pantry first, but then they kill her.
Yeah. And is that only one, we assume, there? So only one went
I don't know. I love that scene, though. Once she finally gets in there.
Yeah,
I love that
scene. Finally gets in there, it's well done with the white kitchen and the way it's done. And
it's
beaten
awesome.
to death and all
that.
And
back then, they didn't shy away from the gore. I mean, it's pretty bloody, too.
Well, yeah, but to me, the lasting impression to me is not so much the attack and the bludgeoning grandma. It's then Candy coming in and standing there and looking down at her grandmother with the open eyes, dead on the floor, kind of.
And all the blood. Yeah,
that really got me.
Right. And that's Cronenberg at his finest, because he knows that it's not the major thing that's going to affect you. It's the coda or whatever. Yeah.
Right. And the witnessing it or the voyeurism of it, sort of thing. But so I didn't mind that as a plot point, this whole psychoplasmics, what is it sort of thing. I do wish it had been just a little bit more explained. And it could have been in the scene where, the Handel's character, I can't remember his name right now, but when he's talking to the police about the whole thing of psychoplasmics, and that's why my wife is up there and everything else. And then we could have made a little bit more of it when old daddy issue dude comes down and starts talking about it.
Right.
Because, he does go to the one guy and he shows him he's got this tumor thing on his neck.
Yeah, right.
That was from psychoplasmics, So
he may be giving birth to them things too.
That's true. Brood too.
Oliver Reed's character is great, and he ends up being almost a hero at the end, but he knows all this shit's going on and he's not telling anybody. So, it's kind of funny that they play him as a hero, but he's really not a hero.
Yeah, but I don't think he's a villain either. I mean, I think they make him a surrogate villain for part of it. He stands up to dad-in-law. He won't let him see his daughter. He won't let the other guy see his wife. It's a very delicate time in her.
Well, I read a quick synopsis to you before we started, and I thought it was kind of stupid, but now it makes sense. They say a mad scientist, and he is in a way a mad scientist.
Yeah, he's got his own, he wants this course of treatment he's experimenting with it. Obviously with her, she's his pet. She's the best one because she can manifest it in such a particular way. you know, but
So he's Herbert West, and she's the best that came back.
there you go.
That's a
Yeah.
damn key I
That's a
yanked out of my
damn
ass.
key. Where did that come from? That's a good one, actually.
And that
But
movie may or may not be on our list this season.
yeah, may or may not, as is every movie. It may or may not be on the list.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or
but
another
I've
Cronenberg.
got, but yeah, it's just such a strange story. But then again, that's very David Cronenberg. The
Yeah, the
strange
ambiguity.
story element is there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's not an Argento or a De Palma or whatever, because they're basically, you know, channeling Hitchcock and trying to tell murder mysteries.
And they're flashy.
Cronenberg elevates it beyond that
Right.
to I'm delving into a part of psychology, almost matrixy psychology that nobody else understands.
Yeah, and Hitchcock, De Palma, and Argento are very flashy with their camera styles. Cronenberg's very subtle.
Yes, but
It's not
still
flashy at all.
dynamic.
It's
I
dynamic.
like the way he tells, you know, he'll tell a story of Candy and her grandmother and shoot the scene from the bottom of the coffee table, kind of looking up at them.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to this straight on sitting on the sofa look. So
Mm-hmm.
I like his camera work. I just, sometimes you kind of get lost in what he's wanting the audience to buy as far as the storytelling goes.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
No, it does make sense. I think I kind of attribute that ambiguity to a lot of his films, because I don't think he explains a lot of things.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, scanners, dead ringers,
Videodrome.
all of that, Videodrome, all of it. Yeah,
I mean, the
even
ones that
Crash is an addiction, and he's just kind of pointing the camera, saying, "Here's the addiction." Doesn't
right.
try to defend it, say anything about it, make a statement, yes or no. It's just there. It is.
And the movies that are less ambiguous are the ones that he didn't write, like The Dead Zone and The Fly.
Correct.
However, he rewrote
History
The
of
Fly.
Violence. Did he write History of Violence?
You know, I don't know. I really don't.
That's an interesting one. Because I don't know if he did.
I'm checking right now. I'm not really sure.
I mean,
did he write Dead Ringers? I can't remember that either.
Oh, that's a good one to look up.
I am right now. Actually, I clicked on it first. Yes, he wrote it, but with some help.
Okay.
What was the other one? History of Violence.
Yeah.
Wow, that movie's already 14 years old or 15 years old.
Yeah.
No, he did not write it.
Okay, makes sense.
So the ones he gets more acclaim for are the ones he doesn't write. Yeah, which, you know, that's not uncommon.
Yeah, no, it's not that every director has to be a writer or vice versa. You know, sometimes you can take someone else's work and do great things.
Right.
Which we've talked about, you know, before in this podcast.
It's a collaborative art.
What about keys? Do you have a lot of keys left?
I do have some. I did want to say one other trivia thing before we move on. And as far as awards, which we do normally do, this is not on the 1001 list that we normally make.
What?
And it really was not nominated for much of anything.
Get rid of it. We can't do it then.
It's just one of those classic late 70s Canadian horror movies. But I did want to mention that Joe Dante cut the American theatrical trailer for this movie.
Oh, okay.
And he was coming onto the scene at the time as well.
He was probably getting his gremlin on, you know, sort of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, I will start first with one that we've already mentioned, and that is Psycho and Alfred Hitchcock. And that murder scene in the kitchen reminds me of the murder in Psycho, where there's lots of rapid cuts, lots of shots of bludgeoning implements, and lots of blood, even though it's in color. And the music is very strings. That kind of stuff too.
I would take that further and say the scene in the classroom is the same way, because there's not a lot of seeing them actually hit her, but we know they are.
Right.
kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I could see that. That's a great key.
Yeah, and when you mentioned not liking the music earlier, I distinctly remember liking the music in that kitchen scene, and it was
I
very
like
Bernard Herrmann.
I do, yes, and I've got that as that music I do like later on. I don't like the credit music at the beginning, but then again, I'm not a big fan of the Fly's credit music either, even
Mm,
though it's a totally different style. But I
right.
don't think it works for the thematic of the piece, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Those are two keys of mine. The music to me is very Dario Argento too. I think he uses a lot of that string Stravinsky, kind of feel to it. So that's another one I had.
Okay. Um, as far we didn't really get too much into the creatures themselves. They are short and childlike. They wear similar hoodies to the one Candy wears, but their faces are very Neanderthalish, wouldn't you
Yes.
say?
Well, upturned nose, very big
Yeah.
brow, just to make them seem different,
So
oddly.
they look like a child from behind until they turn around, and then they don't look like a
Yeah.
child at all. They're like a little bitty
No,
monster, is what they
because
are.
they're a tumor.
Okay. That being said, I think there is a huge influence from the movie Don't Look Now in this. The 1973 movie with Donald Sutherland and Julia Christie. It's written by Daphne du Maurier, who did Rebecca and the Birds, which are Alfred Hitchcock. And
Hmm.
it is about a couple that lose their child in Venice, Italy. And they think they see the child, and they keep seeing her in a red hooded cloak from a distance or behind. And it turns out they're being set up, and that is actually a female dwarf that is the one that they misinterpret as their child.
Hmm.
And that whole element of thinking something's a child and it being something obscure and deformed, to me, there's just a huge connection to the two movies there, and they're
I
only
see
6 years
that.
apart.
I see that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely see that.
So
Um, I've mentioned it before, but I definitely mentioned Children of the Damned,
right,
because there is that whole group of young children looking at you, and they're malevolent, feel in several scenes.
especially the
Um,
classroom scene.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Children of the well, and the scene in the your scene from Terror in the Isles. The whole upstairs brood scene is the same
Right.
way.
Hmm.
You know,
Their barracks.
this yeah, the brood chamber. No, the and also children of the corn. That whole kids who are malevolent feel to
Murdering.
it, and
Yeah.
that we will kill you,
Hmm.
um, sort of thing is in there. That's a big key with me.
Okay.
But you just mentioned one, and it kind of jump shot me to another key. Like you said, pulled that out of my ass, which is, well, in Schindler's List, the only color other than the candles is the little girl in the red hoodie,
Oh yeah.
and that he later sees as a body, kind of thing. And that's kind of interesting. Yeah, the creep factor because to me, it also didn't look like they were wearing hoodies. It looked like they were almost like snowsuits, like
They were.
jumpers,
They were. It was more
and they're
hoodie, Red Riding Hood cloak, if I remember right, and Don't Look Now,
well,
but
same
very
thing in
similar.
Schindler,
Yeah.
but very
Yeah.
similar. Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, be
Yeah. They look
careful
like
of
little
the young
snowsuits.
blonde
I keep
girls.
thinking of when they're walking her back to their home, and you see the three of them walking down the road, and it just looks like three kids from the back.
And they're just holding her
They're
hands.
holding her hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Creepy
See,
shit.
that creeped me. See, that to me is creepy, but
Hmm.
beating grandma with a wooden mallet, not so creepy to me. That shows you how weird I am.
Well, there's different kinds of horror, and there's different things that affect people different ways. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Sometimes
and
creepy
have you
kids are
noticed
scarier
that,
than mallets.
and just knowing that they have no belly buttons, it's
Oh,
creepy. Ooh,
very
it's creepy.
scary.
Creepy, yeah.
Um,
Um,
I have another key that did not come onto the scene until a few years later, but I feel like he could have been influenced by this, and that is Clive Barker with the whole body thing and Nola and the birthing of those things and her eating the placenta and all. That just reminded me of like something really whacked out that Clive Barker would do.
That's weird because one of my keys is, at first, I thought Samantha Edgar was the woman in Hellraiser. They're very similar for some reason to me. And I don't know if it's from publicity pictures.
It's not, but I mean, it's not her, but I know who you're talking about, and I can't think of her name. Claire Higgins, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
I think
but
it's Claire
you know what
Higgins.
I mean? It was that powered brunette woman who's manipulating you kind of thing that I got out of it. That's the vibe I got.
Right.
So that was interesting. You mentioned Clive Barker because
wow, wouldn't it be weird if Hellraiser was on our list too?
I could definitely see Clive Barker being influenced by this and this kind of feel. Yes, definitely.
Well, and think about it, David. Just a decade later, he directed a movie called Nightbreed and cast David Cronenberg as the villain.
Yep.
There's another key.
There's some keys in a weird world, but I do, I was trying to think of, are there similar moments, whether it's special effect wise or makeup wise or whatever, storytelling wise, where, somebody bites open a placenta or does something that kind of bizarre. And no, Cronenberg does it in a lot of his movies. I mean, The Fly has that kind of feel to it, and so does Scanners. So does Crash, for that matter.
Yeah,
but
the only thing that I can think of that comes close would be a Romero movie, and just a zombie eating organs or something.
Yeah, but I mean, no, that whole, not only the biting open, but the next scene where she's like licking the head of the baby creature. I'm like going, oh my God, that is so good, but gross. But
it is. But I mean, it's basically what animals would do. So you're just seeing a human do it.
Yeah,
cats do that. Dogs do that.
Yeah, but moms don't do that. No, I mean, I don't know. Haven't been in the birthing room, so I couldn't tell you, testify to it. But hopefully they don't. Wait, baby. Baby with
it's
claws.
Alive.
It's alive. Yeah, I'll bet. The doctors wanted to lick that baby when
speaking
it was
of independent filmmakers, that was Larry Cohen.
Oh my gosh. Didn't he do like a giant dragon, Q or Quetzal?
He did Q. He did
Q?
God Told Me So, or whatever
man,
that movie was. Tim Funk used to have the poster of it hanging in his basement.
Personal keys work as well.
He did The Stuff too, didn't he?
Oh yeah, with the yogurt is attacking people. Yogurt blob.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Larry Cohen was not one of my favorites, but
because I don't have a lot of keys from this, because I do think we've mentioned so many already. I don't have a lot of new ones.
I've got a couple more.
Yeah, do those, and then I want to ask you a question.
Well, there's a casting key, obviously, almost within the same time frame. I would say just a couple of years earlier. Oliver Reed was in Burnt Offerings, which is another great horror movie, haunted house movie that I like a lot. So we had him in that, only it was with an American. This time it was with Karen Black and Betty Davis. But another thing, when Nola does the reveal, it's almost the exact same pose that they use in Silence of the Lambs with the flayed cop up on the bars. And I was thinking that Jonathan Demme had to have maybe thought of that when he was doing this.
He might have, although that seems like a weird, bizarre kind of, key element. But yeah, I could definitely see that, because when she did it, it's so
moth-like,
symbolic.
The revealing of her insides, and that's basically what Lecter's doing with that cop. He's just flayed him open up high.
Oh yeah.
So there. That was my other ones. Then we also mentioned those that we just did, like Poltergeist and stuff too. That had not occurred to me at all until you mentioned it, but it's blatant and right in front of my face.
Oh yeah. So, well, that's what happens a lot when we start talking. I go, you know. And one of the things I like about what we do and the way we do it, we don't script this out. We
No,
don't even talk to each other about it.
no,
And
that's
it
boring.
just kind of goes. And that's what I like about what we do is you'll inspire me with one and I'll go, oh yeah, I hadn't even thought of Schindler's List with the red hood kind of thing, you know, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But I did have a question about this. Did he use real kids, little kids to film this? Do you know?
You mean like the classroom scene?
Yeah.
Or
The
oh, you
classroom
mean
scene, the
to play the
brood.
monsters?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't even think to check.
I mean, I remember seeing something in my research, and it was just a brief thing that said, like, the beating on the door were a bunch of girls from a summer camp. And I thought, did he use little kids to
Um,
jump on Oliver Reed and beat him and beat Grandma and all that?
well, I mean, honestly, out of context, it wouldn't be that surprising if he did, because a lot of the violence is amped up with music and other stuff. So maybe they said, hey, maybe he just said, hey kids, now you're going to jump on Uncle Ollie. You know?
Okay. And the red stuff's just ketchup. Yeah, really. What? I mean, because that to me is the, you know, again, the creep shudder factor in this movie to me was Candy looking down at Grandma, who's obviously been beaten to death. And then all of those, when he runs into the classroom and all those kids are standing around the teacher,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and her eyes are open, but she's obviously dead, you know, that's just creepy, scary.
Well, I mean,
And
he
especially,
obviously used Cindy Harris, the little girl that played Candy. So I mean, she witnessed and was in a lot of it.
yeah, that's why she's not done anything since
Oh
then.
no! Here we go. Creature Felix Sela looks like a little person to me. Yeah, he is. And
Is
here's
little
another.
person politically correct for dwarf
I
or
think it
midget?
is. I'm not sure. I know little person is
He's a midget.
safe. Yeah, I don't think midget's politically correct anymore. And then there was a guy named John Ferguson.
Midget is politically correct. Okay.
I don't think it is. Yeah, I don't know if John Ferguson is a child or not, but I'm assuming he is not. So at least two of the creatures were played by small people.
Small people. Wee things.
Leave me alone, David. Do not offend me
Midget.
or our audience. That
Paper.
is not appropriate. That is, I'm going to call HR.
Well, you should call HR because he's got kids looking down at a beaten teacher to death. But that doesn't bother you. But little people bother you. All right.
Little people. So I think that's going to wrap up our show today, since I now have to file a grievance.
We're now going to have to go online and do all these apologies and fill out forms.
Yes. I apologize for him, folks. I am so sorry.
YouTube will give us one of the, this has a warning on it because it has politically incorrect speech.
There you go. Anything else you would like to do as far as summing up?
Nope. I thought that was, overall not my favorite, but I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, I think it's a fitting choice of his oeuvre. I can't even say that word. Oeuvre.
Oeuvre.
His canon. Oeuvre. You're right. It is oeuvre. But I do think it's a fitting choice.
It's Canadian.
If anything, because of the acting, but also because of the weird subject matter. And I don't know. I mean, I think it was a better choice than doing, say, Shivers. So, and who knows? We may have another Cronenberg this season really soon.
But yeah, so again, want to thank all of you guys out there for listening, watching, tuning in, subscribing, liking, doing all that, and continue to do that. Please email us, let us know, like us on Facebook and Instagram and all those other platforms. And when you're listening to the podcast, when you give us a thumbs up, it makes us come up, which hopefully lets other people find out about us and join us. And join us. as
Join
Tim says.
us. And everything that David said is pertinent and true. So please do those things. And we will be back with you next week. And probably from the sci-fi universe of David's world.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And until then, we are out of here.
We'll talk to you soon.
All righty. Bye.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.